Hi, class. We're going to talk a little bit more about arguments. So you've got a lecture that walked you through some of the basics and the terminology and standard form and how to set up an argument. This is just going to further that conversation some and give a few more examples to help as you go. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see a PowerPoint here. And I want to talk a little bit about logical and factual warranting. So ultimately, what you've got with logical warranting is the argument in the right form? So anytime you're making arguments, there's two basic questions. Is it in the right form? Is the content of the argument true? Two questions, right? Logical warranting or logical justification is another word you might use. Am I using good logic in my argument? Is it structured properly? That's what logical warranting is, or logical justification. Is the form of the content in such a way that if the premises were true, would it support the conclusion in a powerful way, right? Either in an inductive way or a deductive way. So part of what we're going to do in the class, a lot of what we do in the class is structure, form. Is it logically warranted? Is there a strong link between the premises and the conclusion, right? So that's a vital thing for you to understand. Step one of any argument, what structure is it in? Is it in the right form? Is it logically justified or warranted? The second part of an argument is it factually warranted or factually justified? And this is asking, are the premises actually true? It's not the form of the argument, the structure of it, it's down to the nitty-gritty. When I say premise one and I list what it is that statement true or false? Do I have good reason to think it's true or false? The ideal is to have an argument that is in the right form and has true premises. That's going to be strong, right? If it's a deductive argument, we would call it a sound argument. If it's an inductive argument, we would call it a cogent argument. You have to have both logical warranting and factual warranting. And that's really important, right? So both matter as we approach critical thinking. A few examples to highlight what we've been talking about. So you see standard form, right? Dealing with the death penalty. Premise one, if a person commits murder, then they deserve to die. Premise two, Joseph Duncan, this was a real case in Idaho in like the 1980s. He essentially confessed to the crime, right? To killing children. So premise one, if a person commits murder, then they deserve to die. Premise two, Joseph Duncan committed murder. Conclusion, Joseph Duncan deserves to die. Now, logically, we ask, if these premises were true, would they support the conclusion, right? In this case, the answer is yes. So it's logically warranted, right? It's in the right form. A separate question is, are these premises true? Do we have good reason to think that they're true? That's a separate issue, and both matter, right? With regard to the form of the argument, is it an inductive form or deductive form? So I want you to look at it and think about it for a minute. Is the argument an inductive argument or is it a deductive argument? Right? That's the logical structure. Which one? The argument as it stands now is a deductive argument. If you accept the premises, you must accept the conclusion by necessity. It's deductive. It's a particular type of deductive argument. It's called a conditional argument, an if-then argument. And so the right form is had. The content is a little bit difficult. So then I would say, well, which premise is questionable, right? Which one do you think most people would question? So think about that for a minute. In this case, because Joseph Duncan confessed, premise one is the controversial one, right? Like, why does every person who commits murder deserve to die? What do we mean by deserve to die? How does that look, right? So there's going to be a lot of questions about what that might mean. Also, a person might deserve to die, and we would still say, but we shouldn't kill them, right? I deserve punishment in all kinds of ways, and God gives me grace, for instance. So there's going to be some controversy about the argument. So this is the beginning, but then it would have to go deeper, right? We'd have to come up with another argument to support the controversial premise. So I encourage you to think about this, maybe pause this right now, take some time, and make a separate argument for premise one, that the death penalty is justified. It's a just action because it gives people what they deserve and why that's important, right? So you might want to practice some skills at this point to do that. So pause me if you'd like to. I'm going to move on. Another argument that supports the death penalty might be something like fear is a strong human motivator, right? It motivates me to do all kinds of things. The next premise, criminals are often afraid of the death penalty, right? People are afraid of death. It's a common fear. The conclusion is the death penalty will deter criminals. It will deter criminals, which means it will reduce crime. The assumption here is that reducing crime is a good thing, right? Logically, if the premises were true or are true, would they support the conclusion, right? It seems that they would. So you have some logical warranting going on. What structure? How is it logically warranted? In a deductive fashion or an inductive fashion? So take a minute and think about it. It's inductive because you can accept the premises and not accept the conclusion. It's not an argument by necessity. It's by probability. The premises make the conclusion more probable, but it certainly does not guarantee the conclusion, right? So I can say, yes, fear is a strong human motivator and criminals are afraid of death, but when crimes are being committed, criminals are not rational. They're not thinking about that. They're acting out of passion or selfishness or anger. So it still might not deter, right? So this is a probabilistic argument, not a certain argument. At this point, you can pause it, look at the argument, and think, do you think it's strong or weak? Why? What are some problems with the argument? What are some strong elements? But that might be something you want to think about. I'm going to move on. To reject the death penalty, someone might argue, right? Premise one, every human has the potential for redemptive transformation. Any action that thwarts redemptive potential is immoral. Here, redemptive potential is any person who's committed a crime, even horrible crimes, can be redeemed by God, can turn to God, be restored, become an agent of change in the world. Lots of prisoners become Christian, lead Bible studies in prison, write books when they get out. That's what I mean by redemptive transformation. Every person has the potential to be redeemed by God. So if every person has that potential, and then I say, well, any action that thwarts redemptive potential, that makes it so that God can't redeem the person. So if I kill them with the death penalty, God can no longer redeem them. So I'm thwarting that potential. The death penalty thwarts it, therefore the death penalty is immoral, right? If you look at this argument, if the premises are true, would they support the conclusion? If so, it's logically warranted. The second question is, are the premises actually true? A different question. That's about factual warranting. What logical structure is it in? Is it an inductive or deductive argument? Again, pause me, think about it, look at it. What do you think, right? Inductive or deductive? The answer is that it is deductive. The hints are every human has any action that thwarts, right? No exceptions. It's making it's a categorical argument. That's the type of argument, deductive argument, and it's universalizing. So if you accept the premises, you have to accept the conclusion with certainty, right? As just, this is the way it is. So I think that is helpful. Hopefully it makes sense to you. You might want to say, well, which premises would be most controversial, right? Is it possible that a person could die and God could still redeem them after death? So maybe the death penalty doesn't stop God's redemptive potential for this person. Maybe it extends into the afterlife. So maybe you'd say, I don't think that's true. Or premise two is probably the most controversial. All actions that thwart redemptive potential are immoral? Or is it only some? Only most, but not all, right? One exception to premise two makes it a false premise, because I've said any action. So that's a really hard thing. Does every human really have potential to be transformed? Right? These are factual questions that you could wrestle with. But if the premises are true, and it's in the proper deductive form, which it is, then it's a powerful argument, right? Finally, as an example, one might follow up that first argument with a second argument here. For instance, Paul deserved to die because he killed and persecuted innocent Christians, right? He was a zealot. He was a Pharisee who was killing Christians, which makes him a murderer, right? Premise 2, however, Paul was redeemed by God on the road to Damascus and eventually wrote 2/3 of the New Testament and helped spread Christianity around the world at that time. A similar kind of redemption can happen to anyone, to all criminals. Redeemed individuals often make a valuable contribution to society and change lives. Therefore, we should not kill people on death row because they can be redeemed and make valuable contributions. Killing them eliminates that possibility, right? Looking at it logically, the premises do support the conclusion in an inductive way. There's no musts, alls, everys, if-thens, either-ors. This is a probabilistic argument that people could be changed. If they change, they could make a valuable contribution. It might happen in this person. All very probabilistic and inductive. It's adding an inductive support to the argument we just covered, which was deductive, right? Again, then you would want to ask, do I think these premises are true? Did Paul kill innocent Christians? Does that make him a murderer? Did he deserve to die? Was he really redeemed by God? Can this kind of redemption happen to all criminals, etc.? You'd want to ask, if you agree with it though, then it makes an argument opposing the death penalty, right? So again, I hope you're getting a sense for logical warranting. What structure is it in? What's the form? Factual warranting, the content. Are the premises true? Those are two separate things. If both check off, then you've got a pretty good argument, right? Not guaranteed, but pretty good. And that's sort of how we work to pursue truth and get better at this. I hope this helps. If you have any questions at all for me, let me know, and I will continue to see you